Car salesmen are annoying.
Sign here, please.
Never talk to one again with FlexCar, the first and only month-to-month car lease.
Oh, no.
Get a great car? Switch anytime. FlexCar. You drive everything.
I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the Empowerment Pro. Success is an inside job. And of course, the author of the book, Promise Power. Rather than Mr. Matthew Cossolotto. Welcome,
pronounced. Well pronounced. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Matthew, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Well, I am the author of Harness Your PromisePower. That's the most recent book. And I have to mention that there's a foreword by Jack Canfield, a quite famous person in this area of book writing, self-help books, personal empowerment. He's most famous for a series of books called The Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's a whole series of books, and he and his co-creator, they probably sold 600 million copies of the Chicken Soup for the Soul book. So I'm quite envious of his book sales. But Jack was kind enough to do the foreword to my book, Harness Your PromisePower. I also have another book called The Joy of Public Speaking. And that gets you a little bit into my career as a speechwriter and speech coach. Many years as writing speeches on Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., here in the United States, and in the private sector, in academia. And most recently, I was speechwriter at NATO in Brussels for top officials at NATO. So that's very much a thumbnail sketch of my background. But I'm writing books now on personal empowerment. So I call myself the Empowerment Pro, as you mentioned. So that's a little bit of my background, and certainly would love to talk a little bit more about the book and what Promise Power means to me and what it can mean to others.
Indeed, and Mr. Matthew, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to us, as well as to the world here on Book 101 Review. We salute you. We celebrate you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your books to the world. So let's talk about your latest book, Harness Your PromisePower. Your book exists because of a promise you made to your dying mother. Take us into the moment. What did you feel when you made it? And did you know immediately that this promise was different from other commitments you have made before?
Well, yes, I did know immediately. The lead up to the promise, I guess I'd have to say a couple of things. One is my mother was diagnosed with a cancer, lung cancer that had spread, and it really happened pretty quickly. And so when I knew it would be the last meeting with her, last time I saw her, she knew the same thing. I had a kind of a spontaneous...
Car salesmen are annoying.
Sign here, please.
Never talk to one again with FlexCar, the first and only month-to-month car lease.
Oh, no.
Get a great car? Switch anytime. FlexCar. You drive everything.
Urge to make a promise to her. And the promise concerned a book that she had been encouraging me to write for several years. And I was kind of resisting the idea, even though I liked the book idea. I was resisting it. I wasn't fully committed to it because it was a self-help book. And at the time, this promise I made, by the way, Daniel, was 25 years ago. And I made the promise, as I say, kind of spontaneously. The promise was that I would finish writing the book that she had been encouraging me to write, and I would dedicate it to her memory. And of course, if you make a promise like that at that kind of emotional moment, tears flowing both our eyes. And she looked up at me and she said, Matthew, you do that. Shaking her finger, you do that, Matthew. This makes me very happy, she said. So I was pleased that I said something, made a promise to her that could make her happy at that moment. So there are a lot of reasons I made the promise, I think. Some of them I wasn't aware of at the time. I think subconsciously I knew that by making the promise, I would lock myself into doing it, that I knew I had to do it once I made that promise. The failure was not an option. And why is that important? I mean, one thing is I think promises are very special, and they're especially powerful. And so, and I think they're very powerful for one main reason is that promises come from the heart. Now, I could have had a goal to write a book, and I could have told my mother, I have a goal to write a book. It means a lot more to say, I promise you, Mom, that I'm going to write this book and dedicate it to your memory. That's a much more powerful commitment than just having a goal. I think goals are important, but I encourage people in the book and in my talks to turn goals into promises. Turn an important goal into a heartfelt promise, and you're much more likely to follow through and succeed. So that's my main message in this book. Turn goals into promises, and you're more likely to do what you say you're going to do. So that's a bit of the background. There is a lead up about something that happened to me earlier in my life when I did not follow through. And I can tell you and your audience about that if you'd like. It basically involves an idea I had for launching a comedy TV channel. And basically, I failed to follow through on that. I dropped the ball, as I like to say. I blew it because I didn't pursue it. But that's a little bit of a long story, but it's important background for the promise I did make and the promise I made to my mother. Had I made the same promise about comedy TV, I probably would have done it, but it was just kind of a goal, a vague goal, and I let the momentum go. I didn't pursue it, and so I learned a lesson from that. And I think there are lessons to be learned when you fail to do something. So that was one of the lessons, and I think looking back, I made the promise to my mother about the book. The book was actually a book called HabitForce. I didn't have the title at the time, but it was that promise that led me to and compelled me to finish writing HabitForce and publishing that book. And in the dedication, and the reason these are all connected, the dedication to my mother in that book, HabitForce, uses the phrase, the power of making a promise. And so that's where this book comes from. The Harness Your Promise Power comes out of that whole process of having made a promise and kept my word about a different book. But when I read that phrase, the power of making a promise, a few years later, and I'll stop in a second, but that phrase jumped off the page. And I thought, I wonder if there's something here about the power of making a promise that I should research and write about. And it turns out there was quite a bit to write about, and that's what this book is all about. Promise stories from other people who made promises and kept their word, my own promise story. And I want to inspire people to make their own promise story come true. Make a promise and keep your word, and you can change your life. That's the title of the subtitle of the book is Change Your Life and Transform the World.
Interesting, Mr. Matthew. 25 years is long time to carry a promise. Were there moments when you nearly broke it or when the book felt impossible to finish? What pulled you back?
Well, having the promise, making that promise, that the way I described it to you, I knew I was going to write that book. It wasn't easy. I didn't have all of the answers about writing a book at the time, a self-help book. It seemed outside my comfort zone. I was a speechwriter. I was more in the political world and in the private sector. I wasn't really thinking of myself that I would write a book about habits. And I can tell you a little bit more about what compelled me to write the book. But I knew I would write it. It took a few years. So the promise was kept a few years after making it. 25 years ago, I made the promise. And in the course of the last number of years, I was devoted to writing this book and researching this book about harnessing your promise power. And that's really my mission, is to share that unique power with millions of people around the world. That's what I want to do. So the more podcasts I get on and the more I get the chance to talk about promise power, the more I'm able to fulfill that. And that was also a promise, not
I just bought a new automobile the same way they did in the 1900s when movies were silent.
Wow. Well, I just got this Jeep from FlexCar.
All my smackaroos go to paying off the hefty value this little gas buggy lost the second I chugged out of the dealership. Toot toot.
Okay, well, FlexCar includes maintenance and insurance, and I can switch to an F-150 or Mercedes anytime.
What are you, high on giggle juice? Buying a car is supposed to be the bum deal you pretend is the bison's berries.
I have no idea what you're saying. The first and only month-to-month car lease. FlexCar, you drive everything.
not to my mother, but to promise to myself to finish writing this book. And indirectly, it was a promise to Jack Canfield, who agreed to write the foreword to the book. And I really am indebted to Jack for writing the foreword. It's an amazing foreword. I encourage people to read the foreword and learn from the foreword, because he talks about how promises are uniquely powerful. He also talks about a promise he made to God when he was 27 years old, a promise that shaped his life and linked up with his purpose in life. I won't give away exactly what the promise was, but it was a powerful promise that Jack looks back on and says that changed his life. And the same way I look back on my promise to my mother. So promises are uniquely powerful. And there are a lot of stories in the book about famous people and people who are not yet famous, who might become more famous because of the promises they've made. But I could tell you about a promise, for instance, that Oprah Winfrey made, quite a famous person around the world. Oprah Winfrey made a promise to Nelson Mandela that she would build an academy for underprivileged girls in South Africa. And there were problems, there were cost overruns, there were delays. And she was asked by CNN why she's doing this. Why are you have nothing but headaches here. Why are you doing this? And she said, her response was exactly the message of my book. She said, I made a promise to Nelson Mandela. I made a promise, and I intend to keep it. And that's really what the message of the book is. You make a promise, and it's uniquely powerful, and it somehow you feel more bound and determined to get through all the hardships, and you're going to do what you say you're going to do. A promise enables you to do that. And I can talk about why it is that a promise is so powerful, but I'll just end there, but let you know that this promise that I made to my mother has been with me for 25 years, and it's helped me. Every time I give a talk, I mention the promise. And every time I mention the promise, I get choked up, and I realize that there's something that my mother is always there encouraging me. I think she knew by encouraging me to write the book on habits I think she knew that that's my destiny, that I should be doing that. And it took me a while to get that. And I think that was maybe her final message to me as her son, that she believed in me enough to do that. And she was encouraging me. That's my story about this book. And I actually am updating Habit Force, that original book. It'll come out later in the year, called Harness Your HabitForce. And I'm linking it to this title, Harness Your PromisePower, because those two books are really connected.
Well, thank you for sharing to the world, Mr. Matthew, and thank you for building a legacy as well. You had an epiphany that failure and success both have 7 letters. What was the flash of insight or slow realization? And did you immediately start building the 7 habit acronyms?
Well, that does go back to an earlier time when, after I failed to launch comedy TV, and I'll make the story kind of brief. Mm-hmm. I looked back on having failed to do that, and I thought, I wonder what causes some people to succeed and other people to fall short. And so I was reading a lot of books on self-help, read a lot of different books, Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield and a bunch of different authors. And one of them was a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And that book was very influential in the 90s, and I took a lot from it. I learned a lot. But what I found is interesting, when I would tell audiences that I read that book, and I would ask how many people have read it, a lot of hands go up. Still today, people are still reading that book. And then I say, well, how many people can name the habits? And almost nobody raises their hand. They don't remember the 7 habits. Now, I'm not criticizing the book, but it has a lot of powerful things. But if people can't remember the habits, I wonder what I can do as a speechwriter, perhaps, to help people remember these habits. So I thought, I wonder if I could create a way to let people, to help them, a mnemonic device to help people remember habits of success, habits of failure. And it occurred to me that both of those powerful words have 7 letters. So I thought I could create side-by-side acronyms. For every letter in the word failure, there would be an equal but opposite habit in the word success. So that was the basic idea that I told my mother about. So that was these 2 side-by-side acronyms is really the backbone of the book, Habit Force. And so creating those 2-by-side acronyms was the real challenge. How do I make that work in a book? Once I made the promise, I was determined to figure it out. So I did. I figured it out, and I created these 2 side-by-side acronyms so that people can remember the failure habits that might hold them back and the success habits that can push them forward so they can achieve their goals and dreams. So that's really the background. It was the 7 habits of highly effective people, and then these 2 7-letter acronyms that I created for the book Habit Force. And I'm updating in this new and improved version, I think, of the book. It's Harness Your HabitForce, and people will see that probably by the end of the year, I think.
Well, looking forward for that, Mr. Matthew. And let's talk about on the bigger mission. You've said your mission is to empower millions of people around the world. What does that actually look like day to day, and what is the metric that tells you you're moving forward or toward it?
Well, I'd like to say being on your podcast is a step in that direction, letting more people know. More and more people know about the promises I've made, the books I've written, the messages in the books, and empowering people is my mission. So you probably have read a little bit about what I call my triad empowerment system, which is these three areas I want to empower people in. They are, and we talked about two of them, promises. Promise power is one of them. Habits or habit force is another. And then speaking is my other book, The Joy of Public Speaking, which is already available. And that's the third leg, the third part of this triad empowerment system. So I talk about all three of these and I write about all three of them. So that's how I empower people, by sharing these insights, these ideas. You mentioned right at the outset that I call myself the Empowerment Pro. And the tagline I use, just people can understand, is that success is an inside job. And all three of these triad elements, the three of them, the three books, they're all about this notion that success is an inside job. Our power comes from our thoughts. Our power as human beings comes from the inside. And so you can learn a lot of things, but you have to internalize it. You can hear motivational talks, but you have to repeat those words to yourself. You have to really give yourself motivational talks all the time. And that's what I hope to do when I go out and give a talk or write a book. I provide the fodder for people to repeat to themselves these motivational thoughts so that they can empower themselves. So that's really what I'm about. With the promises, I hope these stories that they read about in the book and I talk about when I give a talk, these stories will help to motivate people because they can see that other people who've made promises have made a big difference, not only in their own lives. That's the important thing. They make a difference in the world. Tony Robbins, one of the big names in motivation and self-help, and he's a best-selling author and hugely popular speaker. He made a promise to himself at age 11. He was 11 years old when, as a poor kid, he was a poor family in Los Angeles. He writes about this and talks about it. I'm not telling any secrets about him. He, on Thanksgiving Day here in the United States, a big day where we all eat these turkey dinners usually, maybe some other things, but often turkey, and have these big dinners with lots of food. His family couldn't afford it. And kind of miraculously on Thanksgiving Day, when Tony Robbins was 11 years old, a knock on the door. And they opened the door and some man, a stranger, brought them a gift of Thanksgiving dinner. And they were so excited. And Tony Robbins, as a kid, was so thrilled to be given this gift of Thanksgiving dinner that he made a promise to himself as an 11-year-old that if he ever became successful enough, he would do the same thing for others. He would provide food for others, Thanksgiving dinners and other kinds of food gifts. And he's fed millions of people. He has a big charity, a foundation, and he gives food away on Thanksgiving, other times of year. And that came from a promise that he made as an 11-year-old. So I love telling these promise stories because I think they open people's eyes to something they already know about, the power of a promise. People know from childhood how powerful promises are. And so I always like to say that you can change a goal. You can forget about a New Year's resolution that people make every year and forget about. But you can only break a promise. And people are really loath. They're very reluctant to break a promise. So I'm just saying, harness it. It's a power like the sun or wind power or water power. You can harness your promise power. And it's right there waiting to be tapped into. So I encourage people to do that. You don't make hundreds and hundreds of promises. You make a few really important ones. Maybe make a few smaller ones to build up your promise-keeping muscles. But people know from childhood that they should keep their promises, and that's what I'm encouraging people to tap into.
Very well said, Mr. Matthew. And to wrap up our discussion for today, if someone listening has been sitting on a promise they have not kept to themselves or to someone they love, what would you say to them right now? Not shame them, but open the door.
Well, they can recommit themselves to the promise. Yeah, I'm not shaming people if they've been slow to do it. I was slow, I think, to fulfill my promise to my mother. It took a few years. But recommit yourself. One thing, in the book, I talk about 7 tips for keeping promises. We don't have time to go through all 7, but one thing you can do is make your promise public. Let other people know about your promise. Tell friends, put it on social media so that you have the support of others. When you make a promise to someone you care about, you have an accountability buddy, so to speak. But you can also make it even more public. Don't have just one person. Tell people about the promise that you've made. That will help you keep your word. Another thing I'm going to see if I can show you is a rubber band on your wrist. It's a simple, powerful thing, this rubber band. That can be a constant reminder of the promise you made. And if people ask you about the rubber band, what's that on your wrist? You can say, I made a promise to my mother. I made a promise to somebody important, my best friend or whoever. I made a promise and I intend to keep it. And this is a reminder of it. A famous basketball player in the United States, LeBron James, made a promise, and I write a little bit about it in the book. Famously, he talks about it, and he has a I promise band on his wrist he wears all the time to remind himself of the promise he made. And basically, his promise was to remember the community where he came from as a child and to help the community back home. And he's contributed lots of money to local schools and that sort of thing. So if you're falling short a little bit about keeping your promise, read my book about the 7 tips. And there are other kinds of stories that can help you be motivated. But, wear a rubber band on your wrist. Tell people about your promise. That'll help you keep it.
Yes, indeed. Wear the rubber band to remind your promise itself. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books, Mr. Matthew? Please
do. The website is MatthewCossolotto.com. They can see on the screen how to spell my name, I guess. But go to MatthewCossolotto.com. And I can also urge them, other people who might have a promise that they made and kept, they think it might be an uplifting story, send it to me. Send me a brief, just a few lines about the promise you made and how it changed your life. We can exchange emails. If you send your promise story to Matthew PromisePower at gmail.com, I'll get your email. Maybe I'll send back a few questions. I'll get your permission to talk about your promise. If you don't want your name used, that's fine. We can just say that somebody, I can use a different name, but we can protect your identity, or you might want your name mentioned. And perhaps I'll be able to publish your promise story in a future edition of Harness Your PromisePower. I'm looking forward to doing other books on this topic and collecting more promise stories. So that's the invitation I'd like to offer people here at the end.
Well said again, and beautifully articulated, Mr. Matthew. Thank you so much for sharing all the books and hoping for more and more empowering books to rise.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Matthew, Thank you so much for your time.
I had fun. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Likewise. I will invite you again to my other podcast, Abstract Essay, and let's talk about the writing process of all your books. Martin people. Yes, Martin people, see you soon.
I just bought a new automobile the same way they did in the 1900s when movies were silent.
Wow. Well, I just got this Jeep from FlexCar.
All my smackaroos go to paying off the hefty value this little gas buggy lost the second I chugged out of the dealership. Toot toot.
Okay, well, FlexCar includes maintenance and insurance, and I can switch to an F-150 or Mercedes anytime.
What are you, high on giggle juice? Buying a car is supposed to be the bum deal you pretend is the bison's berries.
I have no idea what you're saying. The first and only month-to-month car lease. FlexCar, you drive everything.